Well, hello everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. This is an exciting event and a moment for us at Six Story because it's the launch of an idea that I think is long overdue for credit unions, and it's the idea of joint strategic planning sessions. And so, before we get started, I want to tell you a little bit about me. This is my ugly mug here, but really for the last 11 years, I've dedicated my life to the idea of credit unions. And so I started at a North Carolina named Members Credit Union, and really have spent most of my time in credit unions helping to inspire, helping to create, writing and talking about innovation and how to improve consumers' lives through this idea of credit unions. And it's been a tremendous thrill for me to be involved. But I'm the president and founder of Six Story, which is a collection of credit union experts that are dedicated to improving credit unions through the Six Cooperative Principle. Now you might be asking, now most of you aren't asking this because you already know, but I'm going to remind you, the Six Cooperative Principle states this: cooperatives serve their members most effectively and strengthen the cooperative movement by working together through local, national, and international structures. Now that's a lot to say something really simple. The idea is that we're better together. When we share costs, when we share expertise, not only are we as individual cooperatives better, but we as a cooperative movement are all better. And this is really the idea that's driven this organization. And it really is based in this. If any of you studied psychology, you know that there's this idea called Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And the basic argument is you can't really stretch for high-level needs and aspirations as an individual unless you've satisfied some of the basic needs, some safety needs, those sorts of things. And this is true for organizations as well. And so when we look at the world, we see through the Six Cooperative Principle, you can actually attack the lower three levels of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which allows credit unions to achieve better results. And so through shared costs, through shared expertise, through shared ideas, what you find is you save costs, you learn from each other, and you're able to get way up in this Maslow's hierarchy of needs and start realizing the potential that you have as an organization. So that's the idea of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and that's really why the Six Story was created. But let's face facts. My life has been with credit unions, and although my wife would probably argue with this statement, I would say that all the energy and the passion that I've poured into credit unions has infinitely been paid back to me. I mean, here I am 2 years ago ringing the closing bell at the New York Stock Exchange with the Center for Financial Services Innovation. In 2008, I was covered in my favorite magazine on the planet, Fast Company magazine, thanks to a program I created for Members Credit Union called What Are You Saving For? And then last year I was named, which is interesting because I have no musical talent whatsoever, I was named Credit Union Magazine Rock Star. And so all of these amazing honors, and this is what I've tried to tell my wife, all this time and this energy that I've poured into credit unions has certainly been paid back. But I'll tell you, of all these honors that I've had, my biggest honor and the thing that I'm most proud of is the ability to go out and speak to credit union groups and meet all the great people that this system has to offer. But I'll tell you, ideas sort of strike in the weirdest way, weirdest ways in the weirdest places. And I remember last year, I was about to do a presentation at a strategic planning session for an individual credit union. And I was about to go on stage, that this is the 5th time that I've done almost the exact same presentation for a credit union. And then I started thinking about the session itself, and I started looking at the facilities, I looked at the presenters, I looked at the facilitators, I looked at all the expenses that were there, and I started adding everything up. I'm like, gosh, there's these facility costs, you know, gosh, even if you have a dump, you know, you could be spending $1,500 or more, up to $10,000. I've even seen people pay more than that. You got outside speakers, so content to actually add some color to what you need to be thinking about for an organization. If you're going to get anybody of any quality, you're really starting the conversation at $2,500 when you're talking about speaking fees and you're talking about travel. And then an expert facilitator. I've seen very few strategic planning sessions that went well without a great facilitator that's able to pull out of the participants conversations that really make the meeting worthwhile. And so if you look at all these price tags, first of all, there's some sticker shock involved. But the second thing was this realization that these are all fixed costs. And we've heard about the 6 cooperative principle. If we were really dedicated to sharing costs and making each other better, wouldn't we find a way to do these together instead of duplicating our efforts? And that's really the idea around these group strategic planning sessions. The idea is maybe not get everybody to collaborate on every single planning session, but what if we could find pockets of people? Whether it's 6 credit unions, 7 credit unions, 5 credit unions, find groups of credit unions that are able and willing to share the costs and make sure that they get the most out of their strategic planning sessions. And that's what this idea is all about. So let me quickly tell you what our approach is. Again, I told you my background is innovation. And if you've studied human-centered design, really the argument is you can't have a good idea if it doesn't have all 3 of these things. Desirability, people want what you have. It's solving a problem that people have. Viability, you can make a business case for the idea. You can at least cover the costs. And then feasibility, do we have the technology, do we have the people, do we have the expertise to make this idea happen? And so this is certainly true for innovation, but it's also true for organizations, especially credit unions. You've got to be viable, you've got to be feasible, and you've got to be desirable. So let's break this down. When we approach a strategic planning session, we start with desirability, and we have to do an analysis of these things. What problems face your members? Are you solving those problems? Are you doing so in a meaningfully unique manner? And so, in other words, are you doing it differently than other people are doing it? And is it different in a meaningful way? If you don't have those things, you probably aren't desirable, or you're milquetoast and you really don't stick out from the crowd. And so desirability is a key component of what we're trying to get at in a strategic planning session. And so when I was forming this organization, I had to think about who are the people out there that I could attract that could actually help credit unions with these things. And when you're talking about desirability, certainly my background in innovation helps, but Julie Ferguson, the principal over at JRF Consulting, her entire career has been spent in business development for credit unions. You've probably seen her on the speakers circuit. She's amazing at what she does. But if you think about business development, you can't be successful at business development unless you know the product features inside and out, unless you're passionate about your products and you're passionate about your credit union, and unless you have a really reliable process for accomplishing your tasks. And Julie Ferguson has that in spades. And so when we think about evaluating a credit union in terms of its desirability, it's really nice to have the balance between her and how are we going to sell this product or this credit union to the public, and then me, how can we figure out the need set of consumers and how we're actually meeting those. The next piece is viability. So in viability, we're trying to figure out these things. Are you financially positioned for success? Are you optimizing ROA? What financial objectives need to be reached to fuel your mission? Now, all these are sort of basic things, but they're all really important discussions to have. And so when I'm looking for the expert to bring on board, there's nobody better on the planet than Mike Higgins Jr., the principal at Mike Higgins & Associates. Mike Higgins has spent his career on helping the financial side of financial institutions be successful. And so he's founded his own community bank, for example, but he's really worked with small community banks and credit unions over his career to help them optimize the financial side of their operations. He's great at what he does. And what's really exciting about what he's created is he's created this amazing tool to help credit unions get more out of their financial data. You know, as credit unions, really our goal is to optimize member return. But you can't optimize member return at the expense of the long-term viability of a credit union. And so what he really does in a unique way is he's created this tool that helps credit unions understand their balance between their long-term sustainability in terms of business, but also what you're providing to your members in terms of return. So we're really excited to have Mike. And then from a feasibility standpoint, what people and processes are needed to execute our mission? What gaps exist? How might you fill those gaps while remaining viable and desirable, right? So it's easy if you had unlimited money to become feasible, but let's face facts, we all have limited resources. And so who better than Andy Janin? He's got more awards than you can shake a stick at when it comes to training and leadership development. He's an amazing presenter, he's an amazing speaker, but more important, he really understands that for a credit union to succeed, it has to be attracting and developing top talent. And so between Julie's process and strategy as it relates to business development and making sure that people are doing the things that they need to do, and Andy's people skills and development skills, we definitely have feasibility nailed. And so there's two parts of this, right? So even though there's desirability, feasibility, and viability are considerations of our strategic planning, there's an evaluative side, which basically asks how are we doing in terms of desirability, feasibility, and viability. And then there's the prescriptive side. And so our panel of experts not only are able to tell you how you're doing, but they can also say, okay, here's how we fill in gaps that exist. Here's how we make sure that we're prepared for success, not only just now, but 3-5 years in the future. And so there's the evaluative side and the prescriptive side. So in a joint strategic planning session, you're probably wondering what kind of outcomes might we have? Well, the first thing that you'll have in a 6-story joint strategic planning session is you'll have top-rated presenters. Between the 4 of us, we've probably been on 500 stages over our careers, which is not necessarily a must-have, but you'll know that we know what we're doing, we know our way around the stage, and we know our topics inside and out. But we also have 4 top-rated facilitators. So these are the people that can make the most out of the conversations you're having as an executive team or a board. But the other things that you'll get from our planning session is a financial SWOT analysis. So Mike Higgins' program that he's created is amazing. It essentially pumps out about a 120-page document that helps you understand the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats of your the financial side of your organization, but also how it compares to peers. And I think that's a really important thing for you. But also you'll have a software tool available to you to where as you tweak your strategy, you can create what-if analyses, and you can see how your strategic plan can actually impact the financial situation of your credit union. Now, this is a really exciting tool, and we're really proud to add this as part of our program. But you'll also have these things: a technology review, mission and vision review, marketing business development review, and people and process review. And all these things really leverage the strengths of the people that we've assembled for this program. But most importantly, you're going to have a strategic plan that's actionable, relevant, and visionary. Well, we've seen a lot of really super low-cost strategic planning sessions that don't have any of these 3 things. Sure, you have a strategic plan, but it's a plan that's on a document that you're never going to use and you're never going to measure yourself against. We want to make sure that you're getting better results out of your time, your money, and your effort. But the thing that I think really separates this even more than the people that we're bringing and the tools that you're going to get as a result is this idea of peer discussion. So certainly the 4 folks that we're bringing to the table have their own expertise, and we know what we're talking about, and we've been there and we've done that. But there's nothing like having other credit unions that are going through some similar situations to bounce ideas off of. And the peer discussion that's developed by having a joint planning session is really exciting for us to explore. So you're probably thinking this: well, what about privacy? I mean, we got some decisions we have to make as a credit union need to be private, and we completely understand that. And so the way we design this is really with the realization that your idea of permeability of ideas and discussion really varies. And so we want to make sure that you all have the option to completely create an impermeable a barrier between the content that you have at your table and the joint discussion that we have. And so if that's your style, we encourage it. That's great. And so you can have this solid line that protects your discussions from everybody else. We also realize that some credit unions might be a little more permeable than the others. And so you might say, well, gosh, we're going to keep some things private and then have some public conversations. And we also realize that some credit unions don't really care. They sort of approach things that, there's nothing private about our organization. We're open, we're honest. In fact, the more we share, the more we can learn from other people. We're not recommending that any of these styles is better than the others. So what we're doing is we're providing a space and a location at each of our events to make sure that you have the ability to address the privacy needs as is comfortable to your organization. So what does a sample agenda look like? Well, it's a 2-day program. And so a 2-day program would look like this. Day one, we're really talking about the evaluative side of strategic planning. So how are we doing in terms of viability? How are we doing in terms of desirability? How are we doing in terms of feasibility? And so after every presentation that takes place, there's also a large chunk of time that's given to discussion and table facilitation. And so you'll be listening to a presentation, interacting with the presenter, but then you'll be able to go back as a group, as an individual credit union, and discuss the things that were just talked about on stage. And so that's a really exciting scenario for credit unions that are trying to make sure that they get the most new content, but also are able to have the time to actually react to it. So day one's all about the evaluative side, and day two is all about the prescriptive side. So we know kind of where we are right now, where do we want to go, and how are we going to get there? And so the prescriptive side does exactly the same thing. It says, okay, let's look at viability, feasibility, desirability, and then how do we create objectives and goals that are going to really situate us for success going forward. So what about pricing, right? The million-dollar question. Well, I talked to you earlier about the price tags that were associated with some of the events that I've been to, right? So we're talking about even on the low end, if you're having one outside speaker, we're talking about $8,000. So most credit unions, and we're talking about mid-sized and smaller credit unions here, most credit unions are spending on these. And I know that there's some credit unions that spend way more than this. But that's not the reason we created our organization. The reason we created our organization is to help people share costs and get better results. And so we're not going to charge anything close to that. So to give you an example of how we would price an event like this, I'll give you a solid example of one that we've got planned. And so I founded an organization called CU Water Cooler about 6 years ago, and we're about to launch our 5th annual CU Water Cooler Symposium, September 11th through 12th in Austin, Texas. And one of our teammates, Sarah Dyer, she's brilliant, and she negotiated as part of our symposium some space in a Austin hotel that's available to us. We had sold so many rooms in the hotel because of this event that we got some free space. And so what we've decided to do is use that space for our first ever joint strategic planning session. So Austin, Texas, we've got 2 options. We've got the Tuesday and Wednesday previous to the symposium, so that would be the 9th and the 10th of September. And then we also have the ability to do the 13th and the 14th, which is a Saturday and Sunday. And so depending on the demand from the audience, then we're going to be able to do that. But if you look at the travel costs, the facility costs, the food costs, all of that sort of thing, getting 4 expert presenters, 4 expert facilitators, get the financial SWOT analysis, the financial SWOT analysis software tool, all of these individual evaluations by all of our experts, and also the prescriptions to go on top of that, we're able to actually do a joint strategic planning session for $4,900 a credit union. This is really an exciting thing for me because as we struggled with how to make this thing affordable, we were shocked to see how affordable we were able to make it. So this gives each credit union up to 10 guests. If there are additional guests, what we'll do is basically there are some variable costs in terms of materials and also some food costs. And so we can talk about what those additional costs would be, but it would be minimal to add additional people to that. But that's the cost. And so an amazing initiative, amazing people involved. and a very affordable price to get better results out of your strategic planning session. So what we're looking to make any of these happen, and our idea is, certainly our first one is scheduled for Austin, Texas, but our dream is to have every locale in the United States. I mean, there's 6,800 credit unions in the United States. It's crazy to think that we're not all thinking about joint strategic planning sessions. So to make one work, we have to have a minimum of 4 credit unions collaborating. We think at this point that 7 is about our max. We want to make sure that everybody gets the time and attention from each of our facilitators and presenters. And as you start going higher than that, there's a trade-off, right? We either have to charge more because we have to add new facilitators, new presenters, or we have to give up some of that time and attention from the individuals. So depending on what the market's appetite for that is, we might tweak that. But for right now, we're thinking 4 to 7 is about the magic number. So to close up, I just want to say, yay, this is going to be fun. This really is the fulfillment of really what we've set out to do, is help to improve credit unions through the 6 cooperative principle. And that's what joint strategic planning sessions absolutely do. And so what I'd like to encourage you to do, if you have any questions about the joint strategic planning session, I'd love for you to email me, matt@sixthstory.com. I've also recorded this session, so I'll make that available at sixthstory.com as well. But in the meantime, if you have any questions, certainly feel free to reach out to me. Thank you so much for your time and your attention and your dedication to improving consumers' lives through credit unions. Thank you very much.